Joe's got a love that ain't quite the same, a passion that burns like a warm, steady flame. A world of machines, ancient secrets untold. He finds his joy where the horizons unfold. He's out hunting thunder jaws under the starry sky, riding robo horses, watching the moon go by. Folks in town say, Joe, what's going on? But he's lost in the beauty of Horizon Zero Dawn. Oh, Joe's in love with a world from his dreams, a wild, untamed land where the future gleams. He's got Zero Dawn, but he's still holding tight, 'cause that horizon is his love, his guiding light. Now some folks say the game ain't all that grand, but they don't see it through Joe's eyes, don't understand. He sits by the fire, crafting arrows with care, saying this world's got a magic that's beyond compare. He loves the thrill of the hunt and the fight, where the mountains rise and the skies alight. He don't need a real girl's touch or embrace, 'cause that wild horizon makes his heart race. Oh, Joe's in love with a world from his dreams, a wild, untamed land where the future gleams. He's got Zero Dawn, but he's still holding tight, 'cause that horizon is his love, his endless delight. He said it's got more heart than most folks I know, and I trade my old truck for one more show. Ain't no corrupted hearts in this love of his. George just smiles and says it's real as it is. It's all about that horizon, a beautiful view. He'd rather be there where the skies are so blue. He's got zero regrets, just a heart full of song. Mediocre to some, but to him it's where he belongs. Oh, Joe's in love with a world from his dreams, a wild, untamed land where the future gleams. He's got Zero Dawn, but he's still holding tight, 'cause that horizon is his love, his endless delight. So Joe rides out on that electric steed in a world that gives him all he'll ever need. And if love is blind, then he's happy to fall. With the horizon before him, he's got it all. So while we raise our beers and toast to his song, Joe's still wandering that horizon all night long. 'Cause there ain't no heartbreak in that pixel sunrise, just him and that world beneath those endless blues.
Hello, everyone. How is everybody doing? Hopefully good. Hopefully you're feeling alive. Hopefully you're playing some good games, having a wonderful time. I'm glad to have you here. Glad to have you. I'm back, Mr. Finley Cat. He was chewing through cables. I thought I was being sweet by inviting him in to the office, and he took advantage of my kindness and started chewing on stuff. So I got to replace. Thankfully, I have a backup light that I have in the like storage closet thing I have, and so all is well. Lights are working, and the cat's fine, so it didn't shock him or anything. But yeah, he lost his studio privileges. What are you gonna do? We have a good number of things to go through today, actually. We've got a lot of info about South of Midnight. We have information from a Phil Spencer visit to Bloomberg, where he apparently just like casually chatted about a bunch of stuff. I mean, swung by Bloomberg HQ and talked to them about all of it. Really interesting. They did a big interview. Just ran through everything they're planning on doing. So that's interesting. We'll talk about that. They got the full write-up. Ubisoft is facing a class action lawsuit because, of course, they are. A lot of people were thinking maybe we were not going to get to see the Concord episode of the Secret Limited show, but Nope, they're still doing it. We're still going to see it. And they insist it's going to show the potential of the world and characters. So we're going to get to see that. It's going to be really awkward because the game's dead, but whatever. And then, of course, if you're not aware, Disney is looking for a replacement for Bob Iger because he retired once already and now he's going back and he's going to like actually retire this time. So they're looking for a replacement. And who might they be looking at? Who is the most ridiculous option? They're considering reportedly bringing in EA CEO Andrew Wilson as the new head of Disney. So we'll talk about it. We'll talk about it. We'll talk about it because it's not actually as crazy of an idea as it sounds. It sounds ridiculous, but they have a long history of working together. He understands Disney properties, and he also, whatever you think of EA as a business, it's relatively well run. They've had plenty of slip ups, but they've done a pretty solid job in recent years with like Madden, FC, that type of thing, which is all investors really care about at the end of the day. Okay. Like you can be like, well, Veilguard didn't do super well. Yeah. But Veilguard is like this much compared to a pool that is Madden, and the amount of money they make from those sports games is ridiculous. So y'all ready to pay an extra $5 to unlock the final episode of The Mandalorian season 4 on top of your subscription? Yeah. I saw YouTube apparently is experimenting with putting ads on YouTube Premium members stuff. Like you pay $15, $16 a month for YouTube Premium, and they still want to put ads on certain videos. Like what? That's why, like, years ago, people predicted, they were like, oh, all of this stuff, people like left cable just to go and like cut the cord and do all the streaming stuff because it was better. But now all the streaming stuff is just turning into cable again. It's just, yeah, you pay for it and then there's still ads on top of it. And it just keeps getting worse and worse and worse. Like, what are we doing? What are we doing? I don't get it. Anyway, so we've got a lot of that stuff to get through, sift through it. We've got the podcast with Jor later in the stream. We're going to do that. That's going to be awesome. Yeah. I'll back out of it. Yeah, it's apparently they're testing it. It's mostly, shocker, it's mostly on people's accounts that are watching like sports stuff is where I've seen it pop up. So if you're watching through YouTube TV or whatever it's called, like football games and stuff, they'll still pop up with ads because they're like, well, yeah, sometimes it doesn't apply, sometimes it does. It's mostly ad free. I'm like, go dry up. What are we talking about? Come on. Let's chat with Jay. Let's chat with Jay. Okay. Thank you for that 10. Hey, Luke, could you take a look at the South of Midnight documentary that just dropped? I was somewhat interested before, but now it's top 5 games for next year. Also, you're awesome. Thank you, my friend. You're awesome. And yeah, I've got it pulled up already, actually. We're gonna check it out because this is one I've also been keeping an eye on. I think the art style is fascinating and looks really, really good. So yeah, we'll look at that. I do want to... Let me pull this one up. I do think we should talk about this because a game had reviews drop today. Sure did. And it's one we have to ask Joe Raptor about. I don't know if he got a code for it or not, but we got to talk about it. That's right. New segment. Lego Horizon Adventures. The Lego Horizon game. Review embargo just lifted. They sent it out. Reportedly, the codes were surprisingly difficult to get even for groups and people that have covered a lot of Horizon stuff in the past, which is not super common. Like typically these types of games, they hand out like candy. But now that we see the review scores, maybe there's a reason for it. It's settling at like a 70. Earlier this morning, it was in the, oops, my camera's over it. Earlier this morning, it was at like 68 out of 100. I've seen worse scores, but it's definitely not where you want to be if this is like your big franchise and you want it to really be breaking into the mainstream, let's just say. But most of the reviews echo similar stuff. So, you know, some people are like 9 out of 10. It's a fun experience with a feel-good atmosphere, young and old, even together thanks to the co-op mode. I played the game first and foremost as a Horizon fan that was never averse to Lego humor. In this respect, I was not disappointed. Could have been a bit longer because 70 euros for a 10-hour game is pretty light. 70 for 10 hours. It's got to be really good to justify that, in my opinion. VGC, they tend to do good reviews. Lego Horizon Adventures won't top any Game of the Year list, but it's an enjoyable retelling of Aloy's first story, mixed with witty Lego movie-style writing, and the gameplay will entertain the whole family. And then you start to get into, like, shocker, IGN giving it a 7. You get into some of the more, like, scores, more of the 7 out of 10 range. Horizon Adventures reimagines Horizon Zero Dawn with playful Lego twists, simplifying the story while keeping the heart of key moments of characters. Its story reshapes an adult plot for younger audiences seamlessly with a strong sense of humor that kids will adore. Like a lot of content aimed at families, my strongest sense of joy is found not in how I experience Lego Horizon, but in watching my kids become immersed in it. Levels often feel repetitive, but combat's exciting and tactical enough to keep you engaged. Then you get into some of the like more negative ones. So like Push Square. Lego Horizon Adventures has left us feeling somewhat torn. On the one hand, this is charming, a kid-friendly take on Sony's popular series that successfully translates the story, characters, and combat into the Lego realm, and with real visual polish to boot. On the other hand, once the novelty wears off, the level design feels vacant and repetitive. Yeah. Eurogamer gave it straight up a 4. Didn't they give... They gave Veilguard a 10, I think. I'm pretty sure. Astrobot a perfect score. They gave Veilguard a 10 as well. I'm like pretty sure that they're the ones that did that. So they've reviewed a lot. Recently added Black Ops 6, they gave a 6. Slitterhead, they gave that. Quiet Place, they gave a 4. Veilguard, they gave a 10. So, yeah. Mixed is where it's at. Mixed. It's a solid spot to be. Mixed. The gameplay, if we look at the review, it looks pretty much exactly like you would expect it to. It's a lot of like Lego humor, kind of silly, kind of very slapstick. I do think it's beautiful. It really is gorgeous. But shocker, it seems to be a game targeting mainly kids, and Horizon, the first game, has kind of a dark opening. I hate to be that guy, but it's kind of a dark opening. It opens with like a bunch of adolescent teens getting massacred. It's not that feel good. So transitioning it into a Lego story is tricky, to say the least, but they say they did a good job with it. More than anything, though, I think that this is probably one of those games that adults who are fans of Horizon are buying for their kids who don't know about Horizon. That seems to be the primary demo. Maybe you get some crossover where kids are specifically asking for this for Christmas or something, and that's where most of the money's going to come from. But, we'll see. We'll see. It is beautiful, though. And like I said last stream, when we were talking about like the Horizon franchise in general, I really appreciate that in these levels now, of these Lego games, everything is Lego. It's not like generic video game level with like a Lego door and then a Lego table and that's it. It's like the whole thing actually is made of Lego, and I appreciate that. It looks so good. And then the physics simulation on it also looks awesome. Just seems like it's a really simplified game. And like Horizon, perhaps intentionally or poetically, it is primarily form over function. It's more about the visual fidelity over the, and the style over the actual mechanics and game itself. So perhaps it's just a big brained attempt at getting people conditioned to play the regular games. Maybe that's what it is. It's not a bug, it's a feature. They're not trying to make it kind of lacking in depth in the gameplay department. It's part of it. It's just following in the tradition. I don't know. But it's probably one of those games people can have fun with, like those old school Lego games. You look at them and they're pretty, Hate to be this guy because I love those games, but those like OG Lego Star Wars games, Star Wars game for like the PS2. Yeah. Quick Brick Games did a retrospective. That's funny. Now I kind of want to watch it. Oh man, it's so nostalgic. Oh, look at that in the diner. Dude, what a throwback. That's like, I'm getting whiplash from that throwback. That's crazy. And look at the ray traced reflections. Man. That's crazy. But anyway, oh, I remember this level. I remember it. Yeah. That's crazy, dude. It's so funny. What a throwback. This is my childhood right here. But like these games, very simple, very, very streamlined. It's not really why you're playing these Lego games. And they very much are targeting kids. Like that, let's just be honest. They're very much targeting kids. So it feels weird to try to review it with the same standard as you'd hold like other more serious games, quote unquote. So I'm not too like put off by it. It still looks like a fun time. I still am probably going to try it at some point. It's not really high on my list, but maybe over Christmas, that's one to check out. Seems like your most typical Lego game of just, it's pretty, but it's a kid's game, you know. Nothing much beyond that. If you were expecting it to be like a 10 out of 10, this totally reinvents the Horizon franchise, this is better than the base games, you were always going to be disappointed. But if you're just looking for a fun, like, romp through the Horizon Lego hay, then you could have fun with it. Which I think is totally fine. Jor is not a kid, though. Maybe we're all kids at heart. Maybe that's the takeaway. Maybe. Playing it as an adult would be kind of creepy. We're not talking about the Bluey game. Like the Bluey game, yeah, that would be a little weird. Like if you were a 35-year-old man, Bluey game. I think it's on Xbox. Like Game Pass. If you're a 35-year-old dude playing this, like that's a little weird. I'm just going to say it. That's a little weird. I'm going to make fun of you. But if you're like playing this for your kids, or your kids are playing it, or if your kids are like my age, not my age, my kids' age, and they are too young to like really be able to control the game, maybe you play it for them and they watch, that's fine. That's totally cool. But yeah, if you're an adult playing this would be weird. Lego Horizon, I don't think that's bad. Like I like the Lego, the Skywalker Saga was really good. The Lego Pirates of the Caribbean was okay. Like I've played the Lego games and franchises I like. It's not strictly like just for kids, but the gameplay is definitely simplified to the point where it's targeting kids. So, yeah. Anyway, yeah, the 135-year-old playing this. You know, there's weirdos out there. Maybe not weirdos, but there's no weirdos. If you're 35 years old playing the Bluey game, like, do you need a friend? Do you need a hug? It's a little weird. A little weird. I don't know. Come in chat and defend yourself. Lego Harry Potter and Indiana Jones are pretty good. Yeah, those are fine. Like the Bluey game is a game designed for children. The like Horizon, the other Lego games, they're just games that are simplified so children can play them, but they're not strictly targeting exclusively children. Does that make sense? I don't know. Or maybe it's all the same and we're all weird. I mean, playing those Lego games is odd. I don't know. Speaking of kids, what a weird transition that is. May contain content inappropriate for children. Buckle up, everybody. Moonlight, CJ, thank you for the 5. Hi, Luke. I hope you're having a wonderful day. Do you think the dead internet theory will come true? I'm re-googling dead internet theory. It's an online conspiracy theory that asserts due to coordinated intentional efforts, the internet now consists of mainly bot activity and automatically generated content manipulated by an algorithmic curation to control the population and minimize human activity. Proponents of the theory believe that these social bots were created intentionally to help manipulate algorithms and boost search results in order to manipulate consumers. Some proponents of the theory accuse government agencies of using bots to manipulate public perception. The date given for this death is generally around 2016 or 17. Data internet theory has gained traction because of the observed phenomenon are quantifiable, such as increased bot traffic, but the literature on the subject does not support the full theory. I mean, obviously, like, there's a ton of bots. Is it working to sway public opinion that much? I don't think so. I don't see a lot of evidence of that. Maybe like passively, but stuff like community notes on X help a ton. And then also like X also has badges for bot run accounts. If they detect that you're running through automated stuff, then they flag you. But like Facebook is probably the worst when it comes to like automated generated content. Like probably 85-90% of all content on Facebook seems to just be AI generated crap. Like nothing but it's like really bad. So I don't know if I would say it's going to eventually come true, whatever that means. But bot activity definitely is up. The internet's still massive, but yeah. Get off social media, everyone. I mean, I do think if you're scrolling through like Facebook obsessively or Instagram and you're like addicted to that swiping, yeah, you could very easily get taken advantage of by social manipulation and stuff like that. But I think if you're a well-adjusted person who's like going to work and doing your daily stuff, it's not magic. Like you're not magically going to be possessed to change your behaviors. But I think we all know some of those chronically online people. Like some of those chronically online people where it's like, bro, put the phone down. Leading up to the election, there were a lot of people like that, where it's like, just put your phone down. Your life will be so much better. You will be happier. Your friends won't hate you. Like, put your phone down. But they can't. They can't. It's like, well, actually, everyone does want to hear my opinion on the election. It's no, they don't. No, they don't. Nobody gives a crap. Nobody gives a crap. Shut up. Put your phone down. You know what it's like? It's like that South Park episode with the Yelp reviewers. Remember that? It's just that. That's like all people on social media, especially with like politics stuff. Where's the one with like the crowd of people? No, I don't see it. The clip is not on YouTube. Oh, well. Bummer. But yeah, it's this thing where like everybody is insistent that, oh, everybody wants to hear what I think. I've been chosen by the people to represent them. And it's like, nope, no one cares. Shut up. Shut up. No one cares. Instagram has fun memes. Oh, there's that. Let's see where. If you're well adjusted, you're likely not on Twitter to begin with. Yeah, probably. Or you have like, I don't know why this is so scandalous, but it's like, get it off your phone and only access it through like your desktop or your laptop or something. If you really need to have X like for work or something, and that's like to keep up to date with the news or something, cool. Just delete it off your phone. Like I for months and months and months, I just didn't have any social media stuff on my phone. It was all on my work phone. And so like I could go out to lunch with my family, but there's no way to like do the doom scrolling thing that drives me, and I'm sure all of you guys, so crazy when you like go to a bar or dinner with a friend and then they just like impulsively start scrolling because it's like muscle memory. They're like crack addicts, can't stop it. It's like, just stop. Honestly, got hacked a couple of years ago and just didn't care. Honestly, I've been mentally happier. Yeah, dude. Like, I've wanted to delete my Twitter/X account for years at this point, but I haven't been able to because a lot of our sponsorship deals request that we make an X post. Like, that's just part of the package that they expect. So if you don't have an X account, you don't get the sponsorship. And it's really dumb that that's the limit like the limiting factor, but that's just how it works. So I'm like, okay, I won't delete it, but like I can't stand it. Like it drives me crazy. I don't like scrolling and then like, oh, there's a video of a guy getting blown up. Okay, that's cool. And just keep going. And like, oh, well, there's 15 different OnlyFans bots. Okay, like drives me up the wall. So I just don't put it on my phone. Like, do that. Just do that. It's not that complicated. Anyway. Yeah, I've heard once you get your X feed curated and it's much more specifically targeting you, then it works way better, but you got to get there. OMG, I just realized going to work is doing my dailies. That's funny on my bike. It basically is. Basically is. You do your dailies, get the little payout, then you can get back to the things you actually like really care about. That's funny. You're not wrong. Okay, let's talk about this new segment. Then a bunch of rats ate his face. Okay. So, if you missed it, yesterday there was a documentary drop from Xbox on an upcoming game next year that I think a number of us have kept an eye on because it seemed really intriguing. But it is the South of Midnight thing. If you're not familiar with this was the thing that was initially shown off in a trailer. Let's see. Can I find the original trailer? Here's like I think this was the first trailer. Remember this? Kind of inspired by stop motion. It's very, very beautiful. Like ridiculously pretty.
He'll come to your house and it won't stay long.
Gonna get the crap copyright struck out of me, but I mean, it looks stunning. Looks stunning. This was the first trailer that they showed off. And everybody's like, okay, I'm paying attention. Let's check it out. But the studio behind this is a studio you might not know the name of, Off the Dome, because I can never remember it. But it is the same team that has made another game that was very visually stunning called We Happy Few. It's Compulsion. That's right. Compulsion Games. Compulsion. We Happy Few. And if you don't recall We Happy Few, it's this game with like the masks and stuff. It's fine. Like I think it teeters on like going straight into the bad territory at times. It's not the worst thing I've played, but it's also just not at all what I think a lot of people were hoping to get out of it. But very visually stunning, very unique art style. That's where they really, really excel. That's what this team is really good at. And they dropped a documentary, a 30-minute documentary on the game explaining sort of the creation process and stuff. And it's captivated many. So I want to take a little peek at it. I don't know if we'll get through the whole thing, if we'll look at the whole thing, but I do want to look at some of the broad strokes. So let's see what they've got.
In many ways, Midnight is about bringing people together, and magic is all around you. It's about learning empathy for people who aren't like you. It's finding hidden strengths.
It's so beautifully powerful, and I think that it just sort of leaps off the screen.
There's so much atmospheric potential. The landscapes, they're almost like a character in and of itself.
We made these concept songs for all of the creatures. It's not often you get that creative license.
Her journey paralleled with my journey, and like many of our journeys. Did Mama know about this? She discovers the world is more than what she has known it to be.
Coming up against all of these monsters and large creatures where she can communicate with them, heal them, learn from them. Watching Hazel just fly through the world doing all of these things is just a lot of fun.
I think it looks beautiful. I'm guessing it's going to run like crap. It's just my prediction. Okay. My spidey senses are tingling. I also just freaking love the setting. Like Nikki and I, for our honeymoon, we were supposed to go to like Reykjavik, and we were supposed to go through Scotland and Ireland, and I was gonna get to go to the Guinness like brewery, not distillery, the Guinness brewery. I was so excited. That was like, of course, getting married is great, but that was a huge bonus. The idea of also getting to go to where they make the nectar of the gods. But we didn't get to do that because COVID happened, and they didn't want anybody traveling internationally, full stop. So we kind of pulled a bit of an audible. We went to Florida, which was great. We love theme parks, so that's what we did. And then the following summer, we went to New Orleans, kind of as the second half of our honeymoon. And New Orleans, beautiful, except for like the couple of areas where there's like a lot of people who have been drinking for 5-6 days at a time, and they are on another planet, you know. Like I've already told you guys the story of the time we were walking down the road with like our tour guide lady who had lived there her whole life, knew it backwards and forwards, and there's this huge guy walking through the streets in nothing but tighty whities, and he is on another planet. I don't know what he had smoked, snorted, or drank, but he was somewhere else. And he's screaming about, oh, the prophecies were right. I should have read the hieroglyphs. The hieroglyphs could have told us all what we needed to know. Oh, I could see them everywhere. Going on and on and on about the hieroglyphs. I was like, Nikki and I were a little, oh, like, we're not used to that. But she just, like, our tour guide just walks right up into his face. Stop. Go away. Walk. And he's like, okay, the hieroglyphs could have told me that too. He just like waddles off. It was honestly pretty impressive. She was very used to dealing with those types of people, apparently. And if you just like walk up and like are very clear and high intensity, it's like, oh, okay, the hieroglyphs could have told me that. Start wandering away. But the point is, I love New Orleans. I love the really fascinating cultural blending that has happened there. It's because in the US we do not really have a lot of old cities. We just don't. Like in my state, the newest city would have been or the new like oldest building is probably from like the 1870s, 1880s, maybe 1860s, but that's a stretch. So you don't see a lot of really old buildings, whereas in New Orleans you go and there's stuff that's like 350, 400 years old still standing. So it's really fascinating and cool to see kind of the historical side of it. But anyway, I love this setting. I love the art style. I'm eating it up. The graphics in this are crazy. Look at that.
So when I was a kid, I spent a lot of my free time after I had exhausted all the books I wanted to read, exploring sort of all of these abandoned farms and forgotten places.
Humble brag.
And you really,
we get it.
When you
can
walk
read
through a forest in the South, you never know what you're going to find.
Look at that.
Now,
is that not really cool and scary? Some people like what's the term for, there actually is a term for people who are like scared of swamps specifically. I forget what the term is. They told us that on the tours, but swamps are terrifying. Like they are really, really horrifying when you like actually sit down and think about how much could go wrong if you just hopped in here and walked straight. There's like 15 different things that could kill you as you're walking to this tree over here. It's really cool. I don't know why I find that so interesting. I eat it up. I love it. It's that like dance between the orderliness of society and the pure chaos that can be nature, but it's like an ordered chaos. I find it beautiful when like man is living in tandem with something that's trying to kill it at any given moment. I think that's so cool. It's probably why I love the ocean. I love sailing and boats and stuff. It's because I also love just the idea that, yeah, we're going to sail on this thing that wants us dead and will not care one bit if it swallows you whole. I find that fascinating.
As a kid, I would already be at the backside of this little swamp.
finding plants like great wild
Oh,
grapevines
and the trees
that
are
were
beautiful.
so thick and so gigantic. You didn't have to climb them. Mysterious buildings, and they seem to have never served any purpose at all. So you wonder, what was this for? Why is this here? Where did these people who built it go? What happened? It doesn't take too long before the accumulation of mysteries demand an answer, and my imagination provided the answers. So I started inventing adventure stories as I was tramping around and exploring these places that usually featured monsters, and monsters became my best friends. That exhilarating sense of discovery, never knowing what you'll find, this sort of thing is what I wanted to create in a game. The genesis of Midnight was my desire to create a love letter to the South. We are based.
But they're from Montreal. Montreal. Fascinating. Talk about the polar opposite of Louisiana. I mean, you'd be hard pressed. I guess other than the French side of it, because New Orleans, shocker, New Orleans, very French. It's kind of like the whole thing there. So maybe that's part of the tie-in. But yeah, Montreal, at least in terms of like the city and the style of play, it's about as opposite as you could possibly get. Oui, indeed.
Based in Montreal, which is in Quebec in Canada, and is pretty far from the South.
Indeed.
We were lucky to have some team members who grew up in the South. None of us were experts in Southern folklore, but we had this monumental task of building a world that was iconic, did feel authentically Southern, and it was with a bunch of creatures that no one in Montreal had ever heard of. I mean, there are lots of people in the South who haven't heard of some of these cryptids. We reached out to Donna Washington, who is a world-renowned storyteller. And she came to our offices and she told a story to the entire company at the time. And it was captivating, it was mesmerizing.
So I spent, I don't even remember what it was, 2 or 3 days, telling stories and taking questions and just sort of immersing the team in folklore. The stories that come out of the Southern, well, Gothic stories is kind of what you're dealing with in South of Midnight, are all stories about surviving in difficult times. They're about facing the things that scare you. They're about tricking the things that scare you. They're about laughing at the things that scare you. But what was interesting with that team was as they got into the stories and they sort of joined us, it became clear, it became more obvious to them what the stories were about.
We liked the idea of not just the South, but the Southern Gothic slant towards the Deep South. The stories are usually set in a small town. They usually involve something supernatural, and they're usually...
Oh, look at it. So these old, like, plantation houses, they would plant these massive trees, and they're the same ones that were planted back 200 years ago. They've just continued to grow. And so, like, they'll have... we went to one plantation that they had planted these little, I think they were magnolia trees. And they started very small, and they have like, you know, the drawings of the place at the time they planted them. And it's just like little trees on the side, like you expect to see here. And now you see them and the trees like look like this. It's crazy. It really is wild. And what's even crazier is like this foliage will grow like that in like a year. You could clean this off, and by next August, it's going to be the same. Like it's so freaking wild how much you have to fight nature in this area of the country just to keep your driveway. You know, it's if you leave it alone, it will be reclaimed very, very quickly.
soaked in atmosphere. There's a thing that I like to think about called...
It's the house from Red Dead 2. A lot of... So... I wish I could remember. When I got back from it on stream, we went through it. It's on the outskirts of New Orleans. Was it the Whitney plantation? Maybe. I don't think so. Oh, this is it. Oak Alley. This one straight up, they took photos of it and used it in Red Dead Redemption 2. This is the one I was thinking of. My camera's behind it, or in front of it. These are those magnolia trees I was just talking about, where they started really small and they've grown for 200 years, and now they just look magical. Like, it's ridiculous. But part of what is so fascinating about it, of course, is all of the horrors that were involved with it, like to make it possible to build something like this way back then. Like, they still have the slave quarters up. Here you can kind of see like the big plantation house. And then over here they have slave quarters, and they have, you know, fields back here, where the cursor is. Like, it might be beautiful on this one area, but there were horrifying things happening back here. And it's that contrast that I find fascinating. You know, the balance between, oh, if you looked at it from this one angle, it would seem so picturesque and beautiful. But then you look at it from another angle and it's horrifying. Look at that. Come on, man. Yeah, the house is crazy. But that's the thing, is like a lot of people like have this like Southern pride thing, but like these houses were all owned by like wealthy French aristocrats that came in. Like, it wasn't actually really that much of like old school classic, you know, American, whatever. Like, a lot of them were just French aristocrats that came in and had tons of money and built plantations to make even more money. And then when it got a little tricky for them, they left. And they left that behind. They weren't slavers, because slavers are people who are like buying and selling the slaves. They were like sugarcane plantations mostly, or sugarcane. They were whatever it is. They were running plantations using slaves that they bought. But that's part of what I find so crazy about it, is that, again, you look at this beautiful house from this angle and it seems really like, oh, this is wonderful. But then you find out more about it. You see behind the veil and you see what made that possible. And it's horrifying and disgusting and gross. And it changes, like, it casts a shadow on this beautiful thing. And I find that so fascinating. Just the contrast of it, where it's not what it seems. You know, you look at it and you're like, oh, it's just a pretty house somebody built a long time ago. No, it's born out of something pretty horrifying, which made it possible. And I find that
like an imaginary nostalgia for a place. So the idea is that, you know,
if you pierce the
it's
veil
okay
guard,
if players have not experienced like where these genres came from originally, but we're sort of reimagining them.
Dude, is that literally? No, okay, it's not the exact same house. It's certainly visually similar, but no, it's not. I was like, no way they just pulled up concept art of basically the same house. But
and celebrating them again to create like a really cohesive atmospheric world. And so for us, how I would have translated that to something visual is really leaning on the weight of the past. That's a big thing for Southern Gothic. Old decaying buildings, overgrowth, quiet places, old houses, places that tell a lot of old stories. And then there's the supernatural sort of magic realism element with ghosts and myths and legends.
A lot of creatures in these folklore, they sort of balance on the edge between the known and the unknown.
Almost all of the creatures within South of Midnight are inspired by folk tales from the various regions of the South. And if not a folk tale, it's taken from an urban legend that's well on its way to becoming a folk tale. Something's out there, clearly, something anomalous. People become obsessed with learning about them. But to date, no one's really gathered any conclusive evidence or proof that they exist, or really identified what they are.
look at that.
The creatures are all inspired by real folk tales. However, there's not a lot of visual information on the exact look of these creatures, which gave us a lot of flexibility to interpret them. For me, getting the tone, mood, and making sure they had this sort of dark elegance to them was really important.
Mothman.
So while you'll see haints everywhere, every region has a distinctive creature, and they rule entirely. So each kingdom is structured so that you understand, how did a creature become a monster?
The sort of variety of creatures that we have in South of Midnight is really cool. The creatures and just sort of like the wild embodiment of like nature, but also human anxiety is very interesting. But also like human errors and challenges and the ways that we hurt each other sort of manifest as creatures as well. There's some sort of whispered rumors about creatures that you shouldn't cross, that Hazel has to.
Each creature that Hazel meets throughout her journey is going to have a specific impact on her. Some will...
For real, who's that? Shaking Bones. He runs this here operation, ferrying desperate folks to places unknown. Places unknown, huh? She grabs Rue's coin from her pocket. See, I can read too.
be forcing her to face things that she has run away from. Others will simply create a huge sense of fear in her and summon her to dig deeper and to believe in herself.
Yeah, I mean, it's very, very visually stunning. It really is. And I'm sure they're putting a ton of care into the world building, into all of that stuff. There's no doubt about it. With these types of games, though, it always comes down to kind of what you are looking to get out of it. Because if you are looking at this and you're hoping to get like a Soulsborne level combat, I'm guessing you're not going to get that. And I think that's okay. Okay, like that's not where this game is going to excel. This game is going to excel in the ambiance, in the world building. It's visually very, very stunning. I think it's going to be auditorily very impressive too. But given the studio's track record, I think gameplay is where it might start to struggle. But that's okay. That's okay. If the rest of it is good enough, it can pull up a lot of that. But you can see they have a lot of stuff they go through. They go through the music. They go through kind of how they went about doing all that. They have some more clips and stuff. All the footage they're showing is at 30 frames, which I would guess would be targeting that. That's my assumption. Which is fine. They're doing this stop motion thing. I did hear that the stop motion sort of effect that they put on it is going to, it's like it has a toggle. You can turn it off in the settings. It will still occur in cutscenes, but you can turn it off for gameplay if it causes like your brain just doesn't like it or something. I really like it. I won't be turning it off. I think it looks good, but I can understand if somebody didn't like it. But it's a very, very visually stunning game. And I love the setting. I love the art design. I just think, you know, as with a lot of these types of games, it's going to come down to gameplay. That's what's going to separate it out. But it looks really, really good. So I won't go through the whole thing because we'll be here all day if we do that. But IGN, they did a preview. They got to try it or something, is my understanding. Let's see what they say about it.
Indie darling Contrast, or were disappointed by 2016's We Happy Few, it's hard to argue that developer Compulsion Games doesn't swing for the fences and try new things. After spending a day with the team taking a closer look at South of Midnight, it's clear that innovation streak hasn't slowed down one bit, and I went from mild curiosity to full-blown hype for this unique action-adventure game.
Oh, he said the word! Oh no! Oh no! It's okay. It's okay. As long as somebody is aware that they're hyped and maybe not thinking about it super critically, that's okay. Okay. If you want to, like, some games you're just really excited for, you want to just turn off your skeptical mind. Okay. As long as you're aware you're doing that. It's when people like are lying to themselves and like, no, I'm still looking at it very critically. I just think that it looks amazing and I'm gonna cry when I play it. It's like, okay, well, maybe we're getting a little silly. But if he's saying that what he saw was good enough for him to become hyped, okay, let's hear what did that for him. Let's see.
Though I didn't see anything that blew my socks off in terms of gameplay, it stood out in just about every other way.
It's so funny he says that, because what did I literally just get finished saying? It's a game that's probably going to excel visually, artistically, you know, in terms of sound, world building, atmosphere, that type of thing. But gameplay is what they historically have struggled with, and he just...
that blew my socks off in terms for this unique action-adventure game. Though I didn't see anything that blew my socks off in terms of gameplay.
So already, like, the thing that I'm kind of feeling out seems to be confirmed by people who have like at least seen the game behind closed doors extensively. But we'll hear the rest of what he has to say. And again, let me be as clear as I can be about this. There are games that don't have a lot going on in the gameplay department that are still worth playing. I really like the Little Nightmares games, okay? I understand some people don't. I really like the Little Nightmares games. I love the art direction. I love the world building. I love the ambience. I love the music, or the sound design, all of that. I love it. I love those games. They don't have a lot going on in the gameplay department. A lot of it is hold the stick to the left and occasionally jump. Like, that's a lot of what they are. But they're still worth playing, I think, if you like those spooky settings and stuff like that. So just because a game that is excelling in these areas and maybe not doing so great over here, that does not mean the game is therefore bad and you should only look here. You got to take the whole thing into consideration. But what it does mean when this is more mid-level, when this is more of a 6, 7 out of 10, you've got to start looking over here and hoping that that's so good it pulls everything up, right? So it just raises the bar for how good the rest of it has to be.
It stood out in just about every other way, especially with its striking setting, curious stop-motion animation, and stellar original soundtrack.
The soundtrack is one thing I'm really excited for. Oh, look, it's the logo. They put the bumper sticker on the car. That's cute. I like that. Gameplay is kind of important since it is, you know, a game, certainly. But there are some games that are not really games, you know? Like, is the gameplay in, like, Detroit Become Human particularly compelling? I'd say no. I mean, most of what you're doing is walking through levels, occasionally interacting with an object to pick it up, and then making dialogue choices. That's the gameplay. Quick time events too, but like that's the gameplay. Still, very good. I don't think it's a shortcoming of the game necessarily. It's more a shortcoming of the term video game. You know, not every video game has to be an ARPG. Not every video game has to have an inventory system or armor stuff. Like, not every video game needs to have all these different mechanics. Some video games are kind of... The term game is more just a limitation of our terminology. Because they don't really work the same as like a video game. It's not really a game. It's more of a visual novel, an experience or whatever, you know? So it's a different thing. It's a different thing. And I think for everybody, it's going to be a little bit different. For some people, the story takes the helm. The gameplay can kind of suck, but if the story's really good, who cares? For other people, it might be the art direction and the visuals. They want to play photorealistic games. And if the story kind of sucks or if the gameplay kind of sucks, that's okay because they got what they're looking for. Everybody's going to be a little bit different here. And I don't think you're necessarily wrong for preferring gameplay over story or story over gameplay. It's just a matter of tastes at that point.
That all left me eager to see more and play it for myself.
You mean to tell me your mama never told you stories about critters and weavers? Oh, you're lucky I come along.
A quick disclaimer before we get started. I wasn't provided footage of the hands-off demo shown at Compulsion Games' office, and so won't be able to show you all the things I saw. Instead, I'll be relying on existing, publicly available sources, and you'll just need to fill in the blanks.
Shaking bones.
Been a while.
South of Midnight is set in a part of the world we don't see too often in games, the American Deep South. It isn't just a backdrop for you to fight monsters, but rather the entire premise on which the adventure sits, with characters, folklore, and mythical creatures all drawn from real-world places and stories. During a hands-off demo, I saw flooded wetlands after a recent storm, mosquito-riddled swamps, and ostentatious antebellum manors, each infused with elements of fantasy I'd not seen anywhere else. These exotic places fit nicely with an equally unusual art style that emulates stop-motion animation, yet another rarity in games, and one that would be sure to fog up Guillermo del Toro's glasses. The whole thing looks like it was ripped from the pages of a children's storybook, which I really dug. It definitely took some getting used to at first, as the jerky movement might easily be mistaken for frame rate wonkiness to the untrained eye, but it also adds to the otherworldly fantasy charm that South of Midnight oozes. It can sometimes be pretty difficult to understand how exactly a game will feel to play during a hands-off demo, but in the case of South of Midnight, touching a controller wasn't necessary to recognize its best quality: its music. Each level has you facing off against a cryptid from Deep South folklore as Southern-inspired blues and jazz intensifies, and the lyrics help tell the story of whatever beast you're tracking down. In the case of this demo, it was an enormous alligator called Two-Toed Tom, based on an actual legendary creature.
That's Two-Toed Tom. Big gator.
At first, the music started slow with a slick bass line and a choir whispering, "Two-Toed Tom." But by the time we unraveled the mystery of the mythical gator and progressed to the final confrontation, the chorus reached a fevered pitch, the words of which told the tale of poor old Tom. All of these components, the setting, art, and music, set South of Midnight apart in a major way, and made me extremely excited to get my hands on it. The flip side of that is that what I saw of gameplay offered far less originality. Combat looked like a pretty by-the-numbers system of dodging, striking, and finishing moves that are quite well trodden, and exploration relied on double jumping, mid-air dashing, and grappling to distant locations that are pretty standard stuff. The boss fight against Two-Toed Tom, for example, was a very repetitive process of leaping over telegraphed attacks and wailing on the gator when he presented obvious opportunity to do so. Compulsion Games says that while they expect gameplay to be engaging, it isn't nearly as much of a focus as the story, music, and other elements they've clearly put the lion's share of work into. Instead, they're keeping levels relatively short for a 10-ish hour story and putting all of their chips into South of Midnight's exceptional presentation and world building. And
a really good 10 hours is better than a mediocre 70. I'll tell you what. But this is why also like Game Pass really alters the formula with this, because a lot of people are, well, I'm not paying $70 for this. The whole point, like part of the whole pitching process for games like this is that you get it through Game Pass. Like, you already have the subscription, you just download it when it becomes available. You don't have the subscription, you can sign up for a single month for whatever, $15, and then play this in a weekend and play anything else for the rest of the 3-4 weeks that your membership is active. Like, Game Pass just fundamentally changes the equation and changes the math on this stuff. From like, don't buy it to, yeah, try it if you have a membership. And honestly, at $15 as like the access fee for Game Pass, this would have to suck pretty hard for you to not be like, yeah, go try it, you know? Because it's just a really impressive lineup there. Let me, I don't know why I didn't read off your 20 gingerbread man or ginger beard man. That's funny. Let me read that one off real quick, since 20 is the threshold for text to speech. I'm an avid achievement hunter and got the plat for Spider-Man 2, or maybe Space Marine 2. Now that we have Spider-Man 2 and Space Marine 2, I can never tell which is which. With them cutting all later content ruin my motivation for a new Game Plus playthrough, do you think they could do you think it could hurt any future releases, or is it a better chance for SP3 story? I think you mean Spider-Man 2. Yeah, okay, you say Spider-Man 2. Yeah, I was like, cut content. I'm pretty sure that's Spider-Man. Yeah, so they announced they're not doing any more DLC content. They announced that they're not doing any of the previously planned like expansion stuff. They're just moving on. Is it a better chance for a Spider-Man 3 story? Yeah, probably. I would expect that they are still going to plan to do a lot of DLC and expansions and stuff. It just seems like they spent a ton of resources and time working on that, like working on a few different projects that didn't go anywhere for whatever reason, whether that was the Spider-Man multiplayer game that was canceled internally, or if it was something else that they were doing. But now all hands are on deck for Wolverine. And after Wolverine, they probably do Spider-Man 2. But that, I mean, that's honestly probably like 2028, 2029. You know, like Wolverine might come out next year, but probably not. It's probably early 26. And if it's early 26, late 25, give them another 2-3 years to finish up Spider-Man 3. Like we're starting to slip into the PS6 gen, you know? So you could still put the game aside and maybe go back and do New Game Plus in a year or so. But I think it's going to be a while before you get Spider-Man 3. Yeah, endure the wait. Yeah, it's going to be a lot. It's going to be a while. They're a big studio and they work really efficiently, for sure. But I think it's going to be a while. And thank you guys for all of the other super chats and stuff. We're almost done with this. I'll let him wrap it up and then we'll do this. But all this to say, yeah, $10 or 10 hour. Let me try that again. But all of this to say, a 10-hour experience that's really good and really high production value and polished, I'm all for, but it's got to be solid. People I've seen in chat are bringing up like Hellblade 2. That game looked really well, but didn't have good gameplay. Honestly, like Hellblade 2 was so disappointing because it was not just that it was kind of lackluster in scope and scale or gameplay or whatever. It was that it was a step backwards from the first game in almost every single way possible. Not just in terms of the scale, but also like the story. There was basically no real story. It just ends as soon as it's picking up steam. There's like no gameplay improvements over the first game. And in fact, there seemed to be actively like less mechanics going on, less gameplay in the second game than there was in the first. There's way more just walking, way less combat, way less puzzles, all that stuff. Like everywhere you looked, it was a downgrade from the first game, which is why that game was so lackluster and poorly received. With this, there is no foundation to look at. There's no first game to look at. They get a chance to kind of set the standard here. And if it really is 10 hours of really high polish, high production value, very unique art styles and visuals and stories, I'm all for it. I'm all for it. Is it something I would pay $70 for? It's going to have to be real good for me to recommend a 10-hour, $70 game. But again, that's why Game Pass is kind of magic. Game Pass, like, it just changes the math on these considerations.
So far, I'm convinced they just might pull it off. After all, even without playing it myself, it's made a great impression on me. Here's hoping it delivers when we finally get to play it next year.
I'll pick you up yonder after to go find your mom.
For more, check out our previews of Indiana Jones and the Great Circle and Alien: Rogue Incursion. And for
I also find this interesting that they chose to fly out somebody from IGN to look at a hands-off demo in tandem with this. Like I find it really interesting. It's really bizarre. Because I'm not sure. I mean, I'm glad that we're getting some previews, but it feels like if you're going to have somebody fly all the way out to your studio, you would at least let them play it. Like if you're at Summer Game Fest or the Game Awards something and you go behind closed doors there when you're already there to do it, okay. But it seems odd to spend all that money to bring somebody out just to like watch basically what could be a video, you know? It's interesting. Some people are saying, can consumers start getting demos again? I think the point is like Game Pass basically treats most big releases as one gigantic demo. The idea is you're subscribed to the $15 a month service and you can try it. And if you love it, great, you finish it. If you don't love it, you just uninstall it, and you didn't lose that much compared to the rest of the catalog. You just go download some other game they have in the catalog that you like more. I do think that Game Pass will change how a lot of this stuff is marketed, though, because, I mean, just frankly, you don't really need a lot of previews. You don't need to build hype. You don't need to do all this stuff for a lot of these types of games. You just build out the portfolio. You build out the library of content available to people. And if the art style seems interesting, they're going to try it and check it out. So I would expect that like this is going to be another one of those games that is very, very limited in terms of previews, in terms of reviews, because it's short for one, and I think that there's just not much benefit to it. I'm saying this as somebody that would benefit from them doing previews and like letting me make a video where I tried it early. You know, I would benefit from that directly, but I'm telling you just clearly, I don't think the game would benefit much from that. I think you just put it out there, and if people are interested, they download it, and if they're not, they're not. Like a lot of the big inflated budgets with a lot of video games nowadays is overspending on marketing. I'll tell you, like some of these TikTok dudes I know, they've gotten paid for certain like game promotions. Not like the stereotypical, I tried the Smash Defense Tower game and it was really good. Not those kinds of videos, but like videos where they're like, I got to see this game that's coming up behind closed doors, and I'm here to tell you about the latest stuff with South of Midnight. Let's get into it. You know, those types of videos. One of the dudes told me he got paid like $5,000-$6,000 for a 60-second TikTok. I don't know of anybody that is like, I was gonna wait on the game, but I saw a TikTok that was really good, so I'm gonna buy it now. I haven't seen anybody do that. Like nobody. But these companies are spending wild amounts of money promoting their games through some of these social media platforms. And I'm telling you what, guys, I don't think it's worth it. And I'm telling you as somebody that you might be considering giving money to talk about your game. And I'm telling you, I think your money's better spent elsewhere. Okay. Money's great, but some of these companies will throw so much money trying to market it when all you should really be focusing on is spending that money to make a game that's more compelling. And then people will talk about it anyways. Gaming YouTubers, streamers, TikTokers, if the game is really compelling, they'll talk about it anyways because it's interesting. I'm talking about this game right now, and I wasn't paid to talk about it, but I'm talking about it because it seems really unique and interesting. You know? Like, but some companies have this attitude where they're like, well, we have to pay people to talk about it. It's like, no. Honestly, if you have to pay a gaming TikToker to talk about your game and they weren't going to talk about it otherwise, either that gaming TikToker is just trying to like withhold coverage, you know, where it's pay to play, or your game wasn't that compelling to begin with. You know, your goal should be to make the most compelling game possible. So you don't have to pay for marketing. You don't have to pay for YouTubers to talk about it, you know? It's ridiculous. But anyway, going back to all of this, I think that they should have a much leaner marketing style with this. I think their approach right here with the documentary stuff to really explain the world and explain what they're doing, I like that a lot more. One interesting thing here I'm noticing with the combat, so you see that there's, watch this guy in the background, there's this enemy here, but you get him down, you finish him, and then this guy's just kind of like, he shot at you, but he's just going to kind of sit in the corner, and then they freeze for the finishers and stuff. I'm guessing this is a game where the gameplay is going to be pretty lackluster. So the main reason to play it would be for the story, the world building, the music, and art direction and stuff like that, which it seems like all of those sides of it are very, very good. So that could be perfectly great. That could be, you know, enough to go check out the game. But it does seem like this is not a game that's going to excel when it comes to the gameplay department. It seems like that's going to be pretty lackluster, but could still very well be worth checking out. We will see. We will see. Keep an eye on it. Okay. Let me catch up on these. Kino Man Sky. Yeah. I guess, Jacob, we can tack this on to the end of it. Kino Man Sky says it's like Kena. Yeah, if you don't remember Kena Bridge of Spirits, that is a phenomenal comparison. It was a game put together by a studio that previously did like a lot of animation work, like I forget what kind of short films and stuff they made, but they were an animation studio first. That's what they were really, really good at, was animation stuff. And you could tell, I mean, the game was visually stunning. The game, in terms of the animation quality, was very, very good. It was just done tremendously well. These little guys were so cute. It was really, really well done in that way. Majora's Mask Terrible Fate. Yeah, that's one that they made. So this was a game where the gameplay was also like pretty lackluster, pretty simple. Really, really straightforward, not complicated whatsoever. And a lot of people kind of fell off it because it just wasn't that compelling. But it was a visual sight to behold. It was gorgeous. It presented itself very, very well, but there wasn't a lot of depth there. And I think that this game is going to be kind of similar to that. I think South of Midnight will be similar, where a lot of people will play it and love it because of the visual presentation, because of the sound design and art design. But if you're somebody that's looking for like a really intense game, you probably will find it like kind of not that compelling. But that's okay, because it's Game Pass. And if you don't like it, just delete it, download something else. Easy peasy. Easy peasy. Okay. Let's close that. Let's close that. Voila. Okay, let me catch up on these. Let me catch up on these fries. Okay, let's see where we at. Let's see. Whitest Rabbit, thank you for 7 months. Thank you. South of Midnight has the cast of colorful and diverse characters, jargon, and nonsense red flags all over it. I'm a pass. Cool. Oren, member, thank you for becoming a member. Appreciate you. D-Tunes, thank you for the super chat. Hi, Luke. Can you react to Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 gameplay stream on their Twitch? Sadly, there were quite a lot of bugs. I hope it will be good. I would have to like look at it and check it out. I'm not sure if just going off the cuff with it is gonna work. But I can, maybe we do a follow-up like Skeptical Look video where we check it out. As I've said since like 3 years ago, I've been really excited for Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, but if you played the first game, you know what you're in for. It's going to be buggy. It's going to be clunky. It's like, that is what you're signing up for with Kingdom Come. Thankfully, the rest of the game is so good, you can kind of hand wave it away, like a lot of people used to approach it with like old school Bethesda games. The problem with recent Bethesda games is that they're not so good in these other realms where you can hand wave it away. For Kingdom Come, you're kind of putting up with a lot of clunk to enjoy everything else. And I hope that they polish it up. I hope it gets better and better. They delayed it, so hopefully they get there. But as far as I'm concerned, like, it's gonna be clunky, it's gonna be kind of buggy, and that's just part of the package. It doesn't excuse it, it's just to understand what you're gonna get with it. Luke secretly loves this game. Oh, I love the art style. I love the art style. I love the setting. What monsters we have seen or cryptids we have seen look really, really cool. So I love that stuff. I don't love what I'm seeing with gameplay. You know, so I imagine it's one of those games where like you're going to play it and love and eat up the cutscenes, but then it transitions into a gameplay sequence and you roll your eyes and just put up with the gameplay. Which if the cutscenes and if the art direction and all that stuff is good enough, you can put up with that and it's not the end of the world. But again, it's a game that, based on what I'm seeing now, I would say like, oh yeah, $70, this is going to easily make it worth that. No, I don't think so. But Game Pass wise, it becomes much easier to be like, oh yeah, I'm going to check it out, you know? Gingerbread, or I keep misreading it. Yeah, thank you again, Gingerbeard Man, for the super chat. Very generous. Nick, thank you for that one. No matter how good a game's story, characters, atmosphere are or is, if it's turn-based, I won't like the game. Doesn't mean it's a bad game. Yeah, some people just don't like turn-based combat systems, and that's totally fine. I think it's important for people to know what they like and what they don't like, so they don't waste their money. Like with Baldur's Gate, there were a lot of people who are like, I really don't like turn-based, but everyone says the game's amazing, so I'm going to try it. They buy the game. And they don't, shocker, they don't like it. They don't like turn-based combat. It's like, yep, no, you were right. You just don't like these kinds of games. And that's okay. You know, there's no such thing as the perfect masterpiece game that everybody will love. There's games that a lot of people love, or most people love who play it, but there's no such thing as a perfect game. There's some people, I have a close friend. He only likes indie games. He likes like those 2D side scrollers, or he likes really artsy fartsy kind of games. You could hand him a copy of Red Dead 2 and he would not play it. He's like, I'm good. It's not my style. And that's like a universally acclaimed game, right? But for him, it's not what he likes. And that's okay. Banjo-Kazooie was perfect. You take that back. You're right. Oh my God. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I take it back. Oren, thank you for that. Hi, Luke. So glad I caught you live. Enjoying your content a lot. I reached out over Patreon. Oh, thank you, my friend. I will check that out. I will go check that out. Thank you, my friend. Blake, thank you for that. Hellblade 2 was a nothing burger, adds nothing. Yeah, it didn't just add nothing. It actively was like worse in every respect. It was such a disappointment after I loved the first game. First game has one of the most memorable and powerful endings of any game I have ever played. It is so good. The ending of Hellblade Senua's Sacrifice. So good. And the ending of Hellblade 2, I seriously thought I had accidentally discovered a secret ending because it was so abrupt, came out of nowhere, and was so lackluster. I seriously, like, I went upstairs. It was probably around dinner time. I went upstairs and I told Nikki, I was like, I think I finished Hellblade. I think. She said, what do you mean? It's so abrupt. I might have discovered a secret ending. Like, I thought maybe it was one of those things like with Far Cry 4. You remember how like you can be sitting at the table and he says, wait here for a few minutes. I'll be back in a moment. I have to go deal with something. And if you stay sitting there, if you stay like waiting in that room, after like 15 minutes, he'll come back in, deliver some dialogue, and the game's credits roll. Like, it lets you finish the game early. It's like a secret ending. I thought I had discovered something like that accidentally. But no, I had actually finished the game. It was just that lame. So, anyway. Where was I? Goose of Legend. The Goose of Legend is here, guys. Do you think The Last of Us Part 2 comes to PC next year with season 2 of their show? Yeah, almost certainly. Yeah, it makes too much sense not to. Easy money, right? Easy money. Joel, oh my God, he's here too. Oh God, thank you for that. People will always say that it's impossible to make a good Superman game. What do you think about that? The only way you could do it is if you had Superman start without his powers and then you like gain them as you went through the game. And that is just, that means for like 3/4 of the Superman game, you won't be playing Superman. So I just don't think that it's that viable. And it's more of a headache than anything else, you know. You just put him on Warworld. Yeah, there's ways you could do it. Like, I don't think it's impossible, but I think by the time you could make it work as a video game, he wouldn't really feel like Superman anymore. He'd either be surrounded with other people and other creatures that have power similar to him, or you'd have to nerf him to limit his abilities so he wouldn't feel like Superman, you know? Yeah, you're Superman, but you can't fly super fast. You can't go into the atmosphere or fly around the planet. You don't have super strength. You don't have X-ray vision. You can't see into every single building and see every single person doing everything. Like, you'd have to go through all these limitations where he just would eventually stop feeling like Superman. So, yeah, I'm just not sure if it really works. Yeah, or you just do a Clark Kent simulator. Yeah, exactly. Russell, may I ask what watch you're wearing? Looks pretty good. Oh, thank you, my friend. This is a Seiko Solar Diver watch. Seikos are really good, solid watches.
The Goose of Legend donated $19.99 through Super Chat. Honk.
Ooh, honk indeed. The Goose of Legend has spoken. The Goose of Legend has spoken. You heard it here first, folks. Yeah, it's like this one. It's like this one. I did not pay this much for it. I got it through Amazon, but it's like this one. It's just a solid watch. From a distance, it looks kind of like a Submariner, but it's not a Submariner. It costs like literally 2% of what a Submariner costs. So gets you a solid watch that's accurate. Yeah, everybody honk in the chat. Show respect. Show respect to the Goose of Legend who has arrived. Oh, man. Honk, honk indeed. Honk. Honk to His Highness. Thank you, everybody. Well done. Injustice Gods Among Us. Yeah, like fighting games of Superman work. I think that's fine. Because people like understand when you buy that game that, okay, Superman's not just going to laser vision them and kill them. Like, yeah, he could laser vision Batman and Batman's dead. I get it. Like, if we're being really pedantic and silly, we could just be like, yeah, he could just take Batman and rip him in half. You know, but you kind of understand that you're entering into a game and this is going to be more equalized, you know, that's it. Oh yeah, everybody like the stream if you can. That helps. That helps. You know what also helps? Going on strike. Let's talk about this one. New segment. Union workers at Bethesda have gone on strike. They've gone on strike across multiple locations in the U.S., according to a new report from Inverse. Quote, hundreds of employees have walked off the job in both Maryland and Texas. It's claimed that the strike is due to the company not addressing remote work concerns, as well as the recent outsourcing of quality assurance, the latter being something the union never agreed to. If you're not familiar, this is a union tied to the QA department at Bethesda. So they have started to do some outsourcing where they'll send it off to like Microsoft's teams for QA who helped with Starfield, for example, and the polishing of that game. And then they also have historically had a remote work thing where you could do, I believe it was 2 days in the office and then 3 days working remote from home. And BGS and Bethesda in general and Microsoft, they want people to start coming back into the office, spending 3, 4, 5 days in the office and less time working remote, because their stats are showing that it increases productivity and increases data security. I'm sure for them it also lowers costs as well, because they don't have to pay for all the remote software stuff. But I think that that's, you know, there's many things going on here, but they go on, they say the report claims the union is, quote, looking to limit the percentage of quality assurance testers the company outsources in comparison to the number of full-time workers present in the bargaining unit. The union, which is the largest video games unit or union in the United States, is also looking for a more flexible remote work policy after employees are being denied remote work requests. Quote, they have continually given us their first proposal again and again, and it's become obvious that our different mobilization tactics have not worked. Bethesda quality assurance test lead Rihanna Eichner told Inverse regarding the company's negotiations with the union. Striking isn't fun or ideal, but there's a satisfaction in having a concrete physical action we can do to fight for better working conditions, senior quality assurance tester Juniper Dowell told the outlet. Hopefully we can convince them to stop dragging their feet and meet us at the table. Insider Gaming has reached out to Microsoft and Bethesda for comment on the strike. Should a response be received, it will be added to this story. I mean, like, insert joke here about, you know, they're not losing much with QA at Bethesda, blah, blah, blah. That's the elephant in the room joke to make. Okay, there's that. But I think, honestly, I'm surprised that Microsoft, I'm not saying this is good. I'm just saying Microsoft is a $3 trillion company. I'm surprised they let a union form to begin with. Typically, the way this works is if a group of employees is looking to form a union that's going to drive up costs, that area of the business just happens to get downsized. That's how it typically works at these big corporations, you know? They're like, no, we weren't union busting. We just like, we needed to make cuts and it just happened to be where those people were. It's really weird how that works. Like, that's typically how this happens. So I'm, for one, just surprised that they've let them do this to begin with. But I think it's also, you know, trying to increase job security for the people working on these games. I'm a firm believer happy work is better work. I don't think the threat of layoffs helps anything. I really don't think it helps anything. And if anything, like the fear that it introduces to the workforce, like it just makes people more anxious, and it makes them look for other jobs and things like that. Like I don't think the way that Microsoft and Bethesda have historically handled this stuff has helped them. And so I think they should go to the table. They should have a talk. And, you know, if their thing is, hey, listen, guys, we've had data leaks, we've had increased costs, we have productivity dropping, we have to have you come back into the studio, but we will agree not to outsource this percentage until this date so we can renegotiate. I think they should come to the table and at least talk about it. I think that that's a respectable thing to do. Will they? Time will tell. They haven't so far. Again, my dad got laid off like however long that ago that was, like 2-3 months ago, in part because of attitudes like this. A lot of companies in corporate America, like if you start to get a little too demanding, if they feel like you're going to start asking for more money, if they feel like you're going to, you know, you're getting too comfortable, they'll just downsize, clear you out, bring in new people and move on. Like they really just churn through people like that. And I would, you know, more props to them for having the balls to go on a strike. I fear that there's just going to happen to be some layoffs in those departments where they're like, yeah, well, we've decided to cut costs and just to drop the entire QA team at all of Bethesda, and we're just going to outsource it. There will be no QA within the company whatsoever. That could very easily happen. So I wish them the absolute best. I will be keeping an eye on it though, because like people always say, well, the Microsoft is worth $3 trillion. They could afford to pay these people what they're asking for and to treat them the way they're asking to be treated. That's absolutely true. But part of the reason they're a $3 trillion company is because they are so freaking cutthroat, because they do not tolerate that stuff. That's part of the reason why investors have valued them so highly, is because they do not put up with that stuff. And we don't have to like it. We could be very upset about it, but it's important to understand that that's part of the reason why they are valued the way that they are. Yeah. Cog, thank you for the super chat. Luke, I know it's not your thing as much, but I love to watch you do a retrospective on a series as a whole, movie, franchise, show, games, etc. in long video format. I love your deep dives on topics. I sort of did that with like the video I did on the Just Cause games. I don't know if you've seen that, but I went through all of the Just Cause games and talked about each one of them, because like those are games that I played a lot when I was in my like teens. And I love them. They're just like the quintessential like Monster Energy drink of games, you know, like they do not give you anything. They're probably actively bad for your brain, but they're just raw, crazy fun. And I like those games. I like those games. They're stupid. They are campy. They're cringy, but man, you did The Last of Us season 1 too. Yeah, it's stuff like that I think I can get to work. And this live channel I think has opened up a lot of that. So, you know, an Arcane review where we go through it on stream and then we cut it into a clip, that could work. It's just with the main channel, there's certain standards we have to hit in terms of performance, in terms of click-through rates, watch times. Like there's all sorts of things we have to hit there. So only a few select videos can work like that, you know. Binge the Penguin. Yeah, I mean, now that the season's over, I can. And yeah, I plan to. Because I've heard people say it's amazing. That's what I've heard. Reviewing Stalker 2? Probably not. Xbox has not been that thrilled that I didn't love Starfield and that I also did not like Hellblade 2 at all. So I would be very surprised if Xbox has my name on an email list for review codes anytime soon. I would be very surprised. Hopefully they still would, but I mean, you know, I'm in the naughty list. Yeah, exactly. Jor's Lego Horizon review. Oh, what did he say about it? I'm curious. Do you have a Steam Deck? It would be interesting if you talked about it more on your channel. I had a Steam Deck, but then I got an ROG Ally and I use that all the time. So I gave my Steam Deck to my brother. Yeah. It's not a bad device. I just like my ROG Ally more. Yeah. Damn it, Luke, you're supposed to lie and say you like Starfield to protect your relationship with Xbox. That's the funny thing when people are like, oh, this YouTuber was bought. Like, people were saying that, like, Luke got bought for Star Wars Outlaws. I was like, we did a sponsored video where we were, like, we very clearly disclosed everything ahead of time. And even in that video, I had some negative things to say about it with, like, the AI and stuff when we did that preview back in June. But then when I reviewed it in the, like, TL didn't, like, too long didn't watch, I was like, yeah, if I had to give it a score, I'd say it's like a 6 out of 10. Now, if I'm bought off, you would really, really hope that they could get a better than a 6 out of 10 score from me. You know, like, imagine, oh yes, it's okay, Mr. Executive. We paid off reviewers. Well, then why are they giving it 6 out of 10s? We didn't pay them enough. It's like, it's so stupid on its face, but I guess if it's funny, you know, what are you gonna do? Oh man, it's like, yeah, guys, you can pay me off for the review, but I mean, at this price point, I'm only gonna give it a 6. You got to pay me off even more to get a higher score. Like, it's so stupid. It's funny. It's funny. Let's talk about something else that's kind of crazy that happened. Let's do this. You said 6 or 7. I said 6 if you play it as, like, with everything on default. You can get it to feel like a 7 if you play it on the hardest possible difficulty, because you won't notice the bad AI as much, because they can, like, 1-shot you or 2-shot you. So you don't have time to notice them being so stupid if you crank the difficulty. But then everything else kind of follows suit with that. So, like, as it is by default, it's like a 6 out of 10. Allegedly, they're going to fix it on the 21st. I think that's when the big patch goes up, but you can't say you're not at least a little bit biased when they invite you to Disney. Yeah, I mean, maybe if you went to Disney. I didn't get to go to no stupid Disney trip. I didn't get to go to Disney. Which, funnily enough, you know what I heard? You know what I heard? For the Indiana Jones thing, to go to that Indiana Jones preview, you had to be approved by Disney. I was previously approved by Disney because we did the review stuff for Avatar, Frontiers of Pandora, but something happened where Luke is no longer Disney approved. I kind of wonder what I did. Something, I upset the mouse. I upset the mouse somehow. I don't know, man. Ugh. But anyway, didn't that game suck ass? No, it didn't suck ass. It just wasn't very good. You know? It's like you know, when you get nachos at a football game. They're not awful, but they're definitely not good, you know? Like, you're glad you have them and you're eating them because they kind of scratch an itch that you have. But it's not good, you know? You know what I mean? Only good if you're an Avatar fan. Yeah, if you're an Avatar fan, it's probably like Hogwarts Legacy for you. It's probably like the best thing ever for you. But if you're not a big Avatar fan, it's just kind of like a really beautiful, mediocre open world first-person shooter, you know? If you can get it on sale, it might be worth it, but yeah, full price, probably not. The problem with sponsorships is no one pays attention to the disclaimer. Most people think it's a review. Yeah, I agree, Proud American. Like, I feel like we've been really clear when we've done sponsored videos where it's like, this is not a review. They literally are just asking me to talk about this game and share it with the audience. That's all they want. Like, they're not looking for me to hype it up. They're not looking for me to, like, we've turned down deals because they were like, no, you have to say it's your favorite game you've played this year. And I'm like, but that's a lie. So no, bye. But if they just want to sponsor a video where, like, we just say, check this game out. This is how it works. This is what they do. And if you're interested, go check it out. I feel like we've been pretty clear, but I do think a lot of people misunderstand it and are like, it's a bought and paid for review. It's like, it's not a review though. It's not. Like, they literally just are like, can you just share this game with your audience? So I agree. There has to be some, like, really painfully clear. This is not a review. I'm showing you a game. I would normally talk about this game, but now I can because they're paying for the cost of the video, you know? But anyway, let's see. Where was I? Okay. Let's talk about this. Oh wait, hold on. Now it's popping. Silver Lightning, thank you for that. What would it take to send Todd a candle on his birthday? I mean, I bet you can send Todd a package to the corporate office, because he did have that one story where somebody sent him a box of like whatever they are, like those lock picks for Fallout. What are those freaking things called? Bobby pins. Thank you. They sent him a box of bobby pins after the launch of, I think, Fallout 3, and it just had a note on it that said, weigh these. Because they're like, these don't weigh as much as you say they weigh in your game. And it was a funny troll. But I bet you could send him a candle, send him a custom candle or something of himself. That could be funny. That's funny. That's good. Thank you, Gikakachi. Thank you, my friend. 2 months. Ooh, baby. That's awesome. Hello, Luke. Do you have or know something about a rumor of a new portable Xbox device? Ooh, you ask at a good time, my friend. Let's talk about it. New segment. From Dina Bass over at Bloomberg. Microsoft's gaming chief is still looking for acquisition, sees future growth, and is planning on how to enter and partner in the handheld device and mobile store markets. He went over to Bloomberg's New York HQ and did an interview with them talking about Xbox's business and everything that they're looking to accomplish. And there's some interesting tidbits in here, okay? After a tough year, Microsoft's video game chief is still looking for acquisitions and charting how to compete and partner in markets for handheld game devices and mobile stores. Deals that add, quote, geographic diversity, including Asia, might be worthwhile, Phil Spencer said in an interview Tuesday at Bloomberg's offices in New York. Buying another mobile company would add to titles Microsoft picked up in its $69 billion acquisition of Activision Blizzard last year. He goes on, quote, we definitely want to be in the market, and when we can find teams and technology and capability that add to what we're trying to do in gaming at Microsoft, absolutely we will keep our heads up, Spencer said. Still, there's nothing imminent, and very large deals are probably off the table at present as the company is spending a lot of time absorbing Microsoft Blizzard or Activision Blizzard employees. Microsoft wants to diversify the teams working on games by looking more to China, he said. The company developed a new mobile version of Age of Empires, a world-building franchise that first appeared in the 90s by partnering with Tencent Holdings Limited. Microsoft and Tencent released the game globally in October. Quote, it's been a good area for us to learn from creative teams that have really unique capability. The real opportunity is to partner with creative teams in China for global. This is like the elephant in the room in the industry right now, is after especially like Pal World and Black Myth Wukong. Making games in China is pretty cheap. It's pretty cheap, and there's a lot of talent there. There's a lot of talent there. And I think they are realizing, hey, if we can go buy up some studios in China, we can rock and roll. It's not just China, it's like Eastern devs. Yeah, Pal World is Japan, but it's China, Japan, South Korea. Somebody gave me crap because I specified South Korea in a video. And they're like, you don't have to say South Korea. We know if you say Korea, you probably don't mean North Korea. And I was like, I still feel like I should specify. Yeah, it's like Microsoft's like, hey, we got a new studio opening up in Korea. Which one? Oh crap, we forgot to check. So anyway, yeah, it's Eastern game devs is the term, I guess you would say. But the point is, the talent is widespread. There's a lot of people over there developing games in Japan, developing games in Korea, developing games in China. It's a lot cheaper than making those games in San Fran or Montreal or Austin, Texas. It just is. It's unfortunate that now we're getting to the point where like outsourcing is hitting video games as well. But it's just a fact of the matter when you have your development teams based in one of the most expensive cities in the entire country or world in the form of like San Francisco, the cost of you developing games is going to be really, really high. Because all of those people need to be paid a lot more just to survive, much less be well compensated. So it's a real problem. Like if they wanted to fix it, like Microsoft would expand game companies and studios into like, you know, the middle of Oklahoma, you know, or Western Kansas, where it's very, very cheap to live. Do that. But the problem is a lot of these artsy fartsy types don't want to live in the middle of nowhere in Kentucky or Kansas or somewhere. They want to go and live in the beautiful artsy village and, you know, town. And when all the studios are based in those metropolitan centers like Montreal or Austin, Texas, or you know, San Francisco or something, or Vancouver, that's where everybody kind of collects. And they might leave a studio that Microsoft owns and go to a Ubisoft studio, or leave a Ubisoft studio and go over to this other studio, but ultimately they're still staying in that very expensive city. So it's definitely something they're keeping an eye on, is that there's a lot of very talented studios. Like the guys that are doing Crimson Desert, I believe, are South Korean. Pal World is Japan, and then Black Myth Wukong is Chinese. So there's a lot of opportunity over there for expansion, to say the very least. Phil Spencer went on and said, he's repeatedly professed his admiration for handheld gaming devices, said, quote, the expectation is that we would do something in that category, handheld devices specifically. Although the company is working on prototypes and considering what it might do, Spencer also asked his group to look at the market and develop its own vision based on what it learned. Such a device is a few years out, he said. Few. Which puts it like 2027, 2028. So people expecting a Xbox handheld device next year, I think will be disappointed. In the coming months, designers and engineers will focus on making the Xbox app work better on existing portable devices and partnering with hardware makers to ensure that their products sync with Xbox games and experiences. He said the Xbox app right now is good rather than great on some of those gadgets, he said. Longer term, I love us building devices, Spencer said, and I think our team could do some real innovative work, but we want to be informed by learning and what's happening now. The company's planned online store for mobile games has been delayed as the group decides or does additional research on the market, Spencer said. Xbox President Sarah Bond had announced the store in May with a planned release date of July, but staffers are still talking to mobile developers, including those responsible for Microsoft-owned Candy Crush and Call of Duty Mobile, to figure out a plan. As regulatory cases involving Apple Inc.'s iOS and Alphabet Inc.'s Android mobile stores work their way through the courts in various countries, Microsoft still doesn't have an effective way to get its own store on mobile phones. Quote, so a web store would mean somebody doesn't have to go into the App Store to try and install something, but you still have to have a way to find the store, Phil Spencer said. If we're just hoping, like, if we build it, they will come, I'm going to bet that doesn't work. So my understanding is that it's basically like I think that you could build it and distribute it, but maybe he's thinking he has to get something in the app store that then installs the actual web store. So like, you know how some apps you'll download it and it's not the app, like it downloads an executable that then downloads the actual app and then installs the app. And I think that's what he's describing, is that he would need something like that to still distribute it through the app store and get people to see it. But Apple probably doesn't want to do that because Apple wants a 30% cut of everything that's generated through their store, which a lot of courts are determining is not fair or competitive. But whatever. That means Xbox has to make its store unique for players and figure out what will draw content creators. At the same time, it's preparing for a world where Apple and Google mobile devices are more open to Xbox. Quote, I think the ball is moving in the right direction. I think this idea of open platforms where users have more choice, creators have more choice, you see the momentum, right? After releasing the first batch of Xbox games for Sony Group Corp's PlayStation and the Switch, Spencer is pleased with the results. Microsoft will do more of that, he said, and won't rule out any game in Microsoft's stable. I do not see sort of red lines in our portfolio that said thou must not, he said. It's too early to make any sort of decision on the next version of Halo, he said. I mean, I would think if there were any game that was the red line game where you can't bring it to PlayStation, it would be Halo. And if he's saying it's too early to make a decision, like at the very least, he's saying that is not a red line for him. So it's possible we get the next Halo game on PS5 or PS6. Is it that big of a deal? No, frankly, I don't think so, but I think it will do a lot of brand damage. Like, that is such a key Xbox franchise. It would be like launching Mario Kart on the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series consoles day one. Like, it just feels weird, man. Like, it just doesn't feel right. If they do that, that should be like the final step in the full conversion to multi-platform stuff. I think that's what it would have to be. Because once you do that, I think it's just, you can't play exclusive with anything else at that point. I hope some more players, it'll sell insanely well. I honestly don't know if Halo would like pop off on Xbox. Maybe it would. Maybe. I really don't know. Settles Gaming, thank you for that. Thank you for the sub with Prime. Thank you, my friend. Blake, thank you for the 5. Pretty rich from Phil wanting to get into the Asian market after closing down Tango. Well, and it sounds like some of the reporting that came out of ZeniMax was that ZeniMax didn't want to manage Tango Gameworks because they felt like they lost a lot of the key talent in the directors and stuff that made that studio really, really worthwhile for them. And they also, like, ZeniMax executives didn't want to manage a company in Japan. Like, it was too much of a headache for them. So they decided to close that instead of closing other studios, which is a stupid reason to do it. But thankfully they got picked up and it's not going into the dustbin. You know, they seemingly still have jobs, as far as I understand it. But they say they continued to lay off people after they acquired the Activision Blizzard company, cut more than 2,500 jobs and closed 3 game design studios, which, again, this happens anytime there's an acquisition. A company buys a company and then they cut a lot of the fat or duplicated roles because they're like, we have our own marketing department. We don't need your marketing department. We have our own lawyers. We don't need your lawyers. We have our own localization team. We don't need yours. Like, they just go through and they clear it out. So it's very, very normal. Xbox, the Xbox business has never been more healthy, he said, citing growth in cloud and PC gaming as well as console usage. The business is performing right now, and I think that means a more healthy future for hardware and the games we build. He also said he's optimistic about the growth of mobile games. Quote, I feel pretty good about where this industry is going. He said, to reach new players, we need to be creative and adaptive of new business models. These devices, new devices, new ways of access. We're not going to grow the market with $1,000 consoles. I mean, I think the way they're going to try to grow the market is they're just going to double down on the mobile stuff. That seems to be what they're most excited about, is trying to get their own store on iOS and Android so that you can play your games through xCloud natively that way. So the idea, the vision is you buy a game through the Xbox store for $70 or whatever, you have Game Pass, whatever. And no matter what you bought, whether it's on Game Pass or not, you can play it in the cloud on your phone or on your TV. That's the vision. Does that work? I mean, I've told you guys my problems with the internet recently. I think that they have a long way to go before they get there. Like, internet infrastructure in the US is not quite there yet. It's just not for a lot of people. So I think they maybe in 10, 15, 20 years they could get there, but internet infrastructure in the US is kind of a joke. So elsewhere in the world, I know it's better, but a lot of their money comes from the US. So I think they could eventually get there, but time will tell. Time will tell. Anyway, they are optimistic. They're happy with where they're going. They're happy with the vision. They think there's opportunities, blah, 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 blah. Whatever you want to say. But we will continue to explore it. Talk about it. Mobile makes a lot of money. Mobile makes a ton of money. It's ridiculous how much money mobile can make. But the clear thing is that they're trying to expand. They're trying to get bigger and bigger and bigger, and that's their priority. It's not necessarily catering just to like the Xbox fanboys. That's not what they're doing anymore. Which I think that that's probably the right choice. I mean, the Xbox fanboys are a very small demo. I think the more they expand it, the better it's going to go. But yeah. Musk is going to fix it with Starlink. Believe. Apparently it is way better. I watched a video the other day. Maybe it might have been yesterday, where they tested it in September of this year. And they said that it was way better. Like the latency in the unstable latency and not lockdown frequency of latency was much improved, even more so than it was back in January. It's still not great, but it was better. It was better. I live in a small country. We reach around 100 megabit upload and 1,000 download. It's so weird hearing other places like America don't have the same speed. Some places in the US do have great speed. A city next to my current city has fiber internet everywhere, and it's great. You can even get like 10 gigabit per second internet there. It's fantastic. But my city, because it's like it's the bizarre kind of situation with a lot of this stuff where it's all based on like little city governments. So for me, like, there can be this city which has like 10 gigabit per second, and it's super, super fast because their city government like approved all the measures 5, 6, 7 years ago to improve internet infrastructure. They passed those bills when the elections came. But then there's little cities elsewhere where, like this city, it's primarily like blue collar. It's a lot of like, farmers, ranchers, oil field workers, and they see a measure on the ballot that says spend government money or raise taxes by 0.001% to pay for internet infrastructure, whatever. They see anything like that, immediate vote down, not voting for it. And so you can have another city right next to the one that's fully upgraded, cutting edge, whatever, that's down at like 1 gigabit. That's just minuscule. That can like barely keep up with streaming any 360p video. And it's just a small city. Like it's just a gap of a few miles, but it's just the difference between this kind of like old school way of thinking, no, we don't raise taxes, we don't spend any money to do anything. And then the people who are like, yeah, please use my taxes to improve my life and make internet more affordable. But you know, where the city I used to live at, this is what's really crazy, then we'll move on. But the city I used to live at, they sent out a notice to the town, because we have some friends who still live there. They sent out a notice and they said, yeah, so, you know, like water, we have to test our water against certain standards to make sure there's not like metals or poisons in the water. The people who were hired to do that, it was like one guy who was hired to do that. He did not complete those tests for the last like 4 years. And we have no records of those tests. He's supposed to be logging all of them and he just didn't. And we just completed some tests and they were very, very poor. And so do not drink the water coming out of your faucets. Do not drink the water. Like, be careful showering. But it was because they had a ballot measure that went up asking if we should do a big upgrade to our water infrastructure for the city. But to do it, they would have to raise taxes. I think the city sales tax or something by some small percentage. It was like by 0.2% or something. Basically, like for every $10 you spent, you might spend an extra penny or two, you know. But that money would go towards fixing the water infrastructure. And it got voted down resoundingly because they're like, you're not raising my taxes. And then turns out we were drinking like poison water because they just didn't have anything. Yeah, be careful showering, WTF. Yeah, literally. I mean, they said if you shower and your eyes water in the shower, that's probably why. What the like, it's so stupid. So anyway, that's the thing with the US is that it's so splintered by municipalities, states, and then there's the federal side of it. But the Fed doesn't have anything to do with that stuff. It's all individual cities and towns and stuff. And if your city or town has this more old school approach where they're like, no, we're not going to do any of that stuff. What we have is good enough. Then you just end up with a bunch of outdated stuff. Like the city where I live, they openly say, the mayor openly says our infrastructure is about 15 to 20 years out of date for our population. So the infrastructure and stuff they have set up now is designed for a city that's like a quarter the size that we are. Really dumb. Really dumb. The government bad? Yeah, government bad until you need them to do something. And then it's also their fault that you didn't approve them to fix it, you know? It's dumb. Let's talk about this real quick before we get Joe Raptor on for the podcast. You ready? New segment. So the one and only Bob Iger is set to retire again, because if you don't remember, Bob Iger did retire. He did retire years ago. And then he came back, hadn't had enough. Yeah, this guy, Bob Iger, this guy. This is the guy. Bob Iger runs Disney, has been running it into the ground very confidently for years. When he retired, he was replaced with a guy named Bob Chapek, who just looks like a supervillain, does he not? Bob Chapek came in. His whole thing was going to be like Genie, whatever, Disney Genie Plus, Ultra, whatever. And he was going to do like a ton of stuff to try and streamline the business and the parks and everything. But basically his whole philosophy was we're going to raise the price of everything. His baby was also like the Star Wars hotel. That was the thing he saw through. And it was also a disaster. Famously recently it closed. His big expansion that he worked with Iger on was the Star Wars land. They worked closely together on that. And then Bob Chapek took it over. But you notice they fired Bob Chapek. There was a lot of drama surrounding it. Basically, investors thought that he had no idea what he was doing and he was harming the brand, and it just wasn't working. So then Bob Iger was called out of retirement. He came back and he agreed to work with them for a few more years to try and right the ship. And now they are looking at actually hiring in a full replacement. And one of the people that's come up is EA CEO Andrew Wilson. Now, do I think he actually ends up getting the job? It's probably not super likely. It's possible, but it's probably not super likely. Most likely it ends up being somebody that's been with Disney for years and years and years, and it's like an inside hire. That would be my guess. That's how they typically do it. But the reason this news is breaking, whenever you see Wall Street Journal sources are saying this, it's because they're throwing it out there to see public perception. They want to see whether the public would respond well to this. Because to the executives, they view Andrew Wilson as a very capable leader. He's led EA through multiple years of expansion, many years of expansion. It's a multi-billion-dollar corporation that's done very, very well. And he has a history of working with Disney IP. He's made the Star Wars games, which were all great. Right? The Battlefront games? No? Okay, well, there's that. He's worked with other big companies. Famously, he's done a lot of stuff with the NFL, with Madden. Previously, he worked with FIFA for the FIFA games. But, now it's the football championship games. So he understands how to work with big, famous IP and make them profitable. Okay. So for those executives, they're looking at it and they're like, this is the guy. But I think to most of the public, they view Andrew Wilson as like part of the problem with corporate America and entertainment, taking a beloved franchise and then turning it into an over-monetized mess in the form of Madden or FC, or even like the Battlefront 2 debacle, where it was so filled with loot boxes and the star card system. It was so toxic that Disney had to step in and like tell them to stop and cut that stuff out of the game. Like, it was so bad. It was a worldwide scandal. So I can understand why a board of directors might think that he's a great pick, but historically the head of Disney it's not even really a purely CEO position. Historically, the CEO of Disney has been much more involved in like marketing. They end up on camera a lot. You remember all the stuff that like, what's the old guy? Michael Eisner. If you've watched any Defunct Land videos, you know exactly what I'm talking about. He was in all these videos where he would be talking with Mickey Mouse about the launch of a new ride and stuff. The CEO is very visible and very like public facing, and you got to have people on your side. And I'm not sure if he's the one to do that. Is he a nice guy in real life, in person? I have no idea. I've never met the man. He's probably not like cruel or mean. I just think that he is a corporate shark, and his primary concern is to milk franchises for all they're worth and get the most money extracted out of consumers as possible. And that's what he does. And that's probably why the board of directors is really interested in him, because they're like, oh, so he knows how to take a beloved franchise like Star Wars and milk it. Great, let's do that. And I just don't think that's what Disney needs. So I hope that he's not who they end up picking. I hope they end up picking like an actual creative visionary again. But I mean, that's not going to happen. Let's just be perfectly honest. They're going to pick another corporate guy who's just going to continue driving the business into the ground, and they're going to play catch up with Universal when it comes to the parks. And they're going to continue ruining the Star Wars franchises, and it's going to be an absolute mess. The one flip side thing would be that if he does end up taking over, you could see Disney probably opening up or reopening game studios, because that was Bob Iger's big move. One of Bob Iger's things was that he shut down all of their game development studios back in the day, because he thought it just frankly was a better fit to outsource game development rather than keep it in-house. So the like Lucasfilm games got downsized and all this. And what you're seeing now is that there's a huge drop off in the number of companies that want to work with Disney on their IP to make games. You notice like Ubisoft, before Star Wars Outlaws even launched, said, we are not making a sequel. Even if that game had popped off and been a wild success, sold 20 million copies, they were saying we're not making another one because Disney's taking 30%. Like, we're just not going to do it. We're just not. And that should tell you a lot. It's same thing with like the Avatar thing. They're not making another one of those because they don't want to give up the 30% cut. All these other companies are saying, yeah, we're going to stop doing the licensed games. It's just not worth the trouble. We're good. And the only exception being EA with the Star Wars stuff that they've done with like Jedi Survivor, for example. But I'm sure that that's part of the reason that they're looking at Andrew Wilson is because they have a good relationship with him. I'm sure they have a good deal struck with EA as well. So we'll see that. As long as they don't handle the Marvel games, I wouldn't hold my breath. He actually regrets closing LucasArts now. Yeah, you're right. There was an article where Bob Iger said that it was one of his bigger regrets. Let's see. I don't see the article I was looking for. Yeah, they've been trying to push him to buy games publishers. Yeah, they were even talking about acquiring, Disney was talking about acquiring EA, which is crazy. There's been other discussions, regrets tapping Bob Chapek as CEO, which is fun. Yeah, he described picking him as his successor one of his worst business decisions. Iger, who stepped down in early 2020, just before COVID-19 came to regret his decision as the scope of the challenge faced the company became clear, according to the report. He said he was tired of being harangued about succession and said, fine, you guys have someone else run the business. Former Disney exec told Insider regarding Iger's initial decision to step down and name Chapek to succeed him. He greatly regretted it as soon as COVID hit. While the succession plan called for Chapek to report to both Iger and Iger-led Disney board, their relationship soured quickly. The two executives reportedly disagreed on several key elements of Disney's business, including how the company should be structured internally, its handling of political matters, and its response to the COVID-19 pandemic. This was the other thing. Yeah, ex-Disney exec on Florida, don't say gay flap. They had this whole thing where like there was a law in Florida to the point where the company alienated some allies both sides. In a short period of time, they managed to piss off both the left and the right. The company initially angered its LGBTQ workforce and their supporters by declining to take a stand on or against a bill that began circulating in Florida. And so they like tried to not take a stand, then they tried to take a stand after the fact, but they just ended up like pissing everybody off in the process. And so that kind of shoved Chapek out the door. But anyway, yeah, I think if they were to go with Andrew Wilson, you'd see more Disney games coming out of Disney. I think they'd open up game studios, think they would do that type of thing. And you could see a renaissance of Disney IP games, whether that's Pirates of the Caribbean or Star Wars games or whatever else. You'd see a lot more of those starting to pour out. Could that be a good thing? Maybe. But it's Andrew Wilson, and I'm guessing that it would be typical EA stuff. It would be really monetized heavily, and that's what you would see. I hope they get a visionary, but I mean, let's be honest, they're not going to. They're going to keep doing what they've done forever. And I think that they're going to hire another corporate bigwig, and that's unfortunate, but that's just how it's going to be. Loot boxes on Disney Plus would be crazy. Yeah, you pay $5 and you get a loot box, and those are the shows that you can watch. But you have to keep like trying to get a gotcha of of what show you want to watch or movie you want to watch. Anyway. Okay. Anyway, so that's happening. We'll see what happens. I don't think Bob Iger steps down until 2026. When does Bob Iger leave? 2026. Yeah. He's leaving in 2026. So he has one more year. But I think their goal is to figure out the successor by early to middle of next year and then let them work side by side with Iger for 6 months or 9 months so that they have some experience on it before he leaves in early 2026. We'll see if that works. I mean, Disney has done such a bad job. Like, You see this uptick since the rumored reports of Andrew Wilson becoming CEO. You better believe the board of directors is watching that. They're interested. They're interested in the investor response. But, you know, since Bob Iger like left, big tank during COVID, recovered a little bit, and then just has continually fallen since Bob Iger came back. And it's just really too bad. There's been rumors Apple might try to acquire them. I don't think Apple wants to do that, though. I don't think it would be a good idea. But anyway, we'll leave it there. Watch it be Kathleen Kennedy. Dude, if they named Kathleen Kennedy as the new head of Disney, that would be hilarious. I guarantee you would see the stock plummet. People would immediately be like, nope. Because there's already like discussions of them redoing like there's rumors of them doing all sorts of stuff to change that, where they want to back off of a lot of her pushes, but they don't want to face a hate mob if they do it. So anyway, Lynn, thank you for becoming a member. Thank you. They need to figure out how to fire her. They want her to retire. They want her to step down.
Lynn Hamrick is now a member.
Oh, what's this? Joraptor, new post. Looks like Horizon Online is launching in 2025. Guerrilla is looking for an intern to help out with the online project during the first half of 2025. Then they'll acquire both theoretical knowledge and practical experience to ensure the game is prepared for launch. We also have many rumors that Sony is looking to include big games in 2025 next to Death Stranding and Ghost of Yotei. Interesting. Release QA intern for the first half of 25. I mean, that would put it like May to June. That's interesting. Dude, like they're going head to head with Monster Hunter. This is going to be crazy. It's going to be really interesting. Yeah, George time has come. It has. It has. 53 nights. Thank you for the 5. Going back to Battlefront 2. Don't forget the most downloaded comment or downvoted comment on Reddit was for the sense of pride and accomplishment. Yeah. That whole thing, it's been long enough that most people have kind of, it's hazy, it's foggy. They don't remember it super clearly, but that Star Wars Battlefront 2 thing was so insane that there were regulatory bodies in like Belgium talking about banning the game in the EU. There were discussions of it being banned in Australia, all because of like these loot boxes that they said were basically just gambling. You know, it was so crazy that Disney stepped in and was like, you guys screwed this up. Imagine Disney stepping in for like Star Wars Outlaws. If Star Wars Outlaws screwed something up so bad that they had to step in and do it. I cannot fathom that happening, but that's what happened with this. Like, it's absolutely insane. Jor should apply. Yeah, he should get it. Okay. Speaking of Jor, we've got the podcast to do here in a few minutes, guys. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to end this stream. And then we will be back in like 10-15 minutes to talk with Jor about all of this. I'm sure he's going to want to talk about this too. Okay. So we'll be back momentarily. Thank you, everybody who's been watching and hanging out with me so far. We will make a new event. It'll be a new stream event. So just go back to Luke Stevens Live, refresh the channel, and you should see it pop up here in a minute once I make it. Okay. So I'll see you soon. Okay. Much love. See you on the other side.